Right, hello everyone. Sorry for the absolutely massive delay in getting on the live stream today. I've basically been trying to find some kind of live streaming package that would be suitable for us, because we want something kind of minimalistic and we can't really use any of the gaming packages because it doesn't fit the layout that I need. So I've been trying to kind of have a look around for different widgets and stuff like that. And so far not been very successful. I'm going to do more research into it. I've not spent a lot of time in doing that. I've been doing that this morning. I'm hoping that I could find something in time for today's stream, but it ended up just making me late in the end, so I apologise for that. What I'm going to do today though, let's get rid of this, is I'm going to pick up where I left off before, which was making the settings file we were trying to do. But I'm going to do it slightly differently, simply because I contacted one of my tutors asking about the extern keyword, and they gave me some pointers on how to use it to get the linker errors to kind of go away. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create a class through here, because I actually do want a header and a CPP file, which I didn't realise I needed before. So let's just call this settings. However, what I'm also going to do is, before I do that, I need to remove all references of it elsewhere, and delete the other file. Let me get up a txt file, just to copy in this settings file here. It's loading quite a few things at once, so just a second. Yeah. If it'll work. There we go. Dump that in there. Close that. And then if I can get open the file for this. I'm going to delete the old settings.h file because I'm going to make it redundant essentially. And what I'm going to do is make it public. Give it a second. Now, why it takes so long to... I guess it has to recompile the entire project to add something else in, but I'm not quite sure why. In the meantime, I'll just quickly open up the project board. So we're actually kind of a bit behind schedule on some things. The reason it's so late is because of the weekend. We don't tend to work on weekends if we can help it. So variable cleanup, that's the thing that I've been working on as in progress. This again is something that I'm behind schedule on just because I can't find anything. I will try and get as many of these done today as possible. This is an important feature that I'll get done once these settings are finished. I'm not giving it a deadline yet, but actually I will set that up now. I will estimate that this will probably take like... I've already put two hours on here. Due date I will set as tomorrow, just because of the other stuff that I've got to do as well. So that should be fine, so let's close that. Why is it not showing? Did that even save? Okay, there we go. Hopefully that saves. Okay. So we've actually got a lot of stuff that needs doing by Josh, so still Yeah, it's still compiling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare some of these tasks. I'm going to assign Joshua Matthews to it. Let's edit this. This shouldn't take too long. I imagine it will take him an hour or two. I'll be generous, give him 2 hours on that. Save that. Priority is highest. We need this doing. Absolutely, we can't really do without it. I'll link this issue because it's blocked by. Let's see. Blocked by additional seed fund request. Matthews, close that off. Also, I need to go through and any tasks that are not assigned, I need to assign them. There we go. There we go. I think 2 hours is kind of like a good default for most things, to be honest. Link issue. So this is blocked by booking the ticket, so I've just done that. There we go. Obviously you don't want to make any preparations unless we actually good to go. Let's close that off. And again, we basically want to do the same thing for this one. Matthews, developer, visibility private. Importance is minimum viable product because we have to do it. I know it kind of doesn't really make much sense referring to this kind of thing as minimum viable product, but it kind of is in a sense. It's essential to our business model. One thing we're hoping is that because of all the coronavirus stuff, this isn't cancelled, this event. So I'll put a deadline of Friday for that. We're hoping to get all of this done this week if possible, but we need to make a finance application, so that might stop us. In fact, I'll put this as next week. Highest priority. Let's double check this. I don't think I put a deadline on it. I also didn't save the description. There we go. Due date, again we'll put this as the 20th, so not this week but next week, so we'll do all the finance application stuff. Close that off. So again, the date didn't save. I don't like how it doesn't automatically do that because you kind of have to manually press enter even if you've already put a date in, which is kind of annoying, but Oh well, I'm sure I'll get used to it. We ideally want this done, I would say on the Monday or Tuesday of next week. I'll be generous and say Tuesday. Yeah, I think that's okay. Don't know if I put blocked issues on accommodation arrangements, I'll just double check. No, I didn't. It's blocked by tickets booking. There we go. I'm also going to readjust some of these dates as well, so that's done, that's fine. Excuse me. Set this to today. I can't see any reason why I shouldn't get this sorted today, so I'll leave that as is. One exciting thing as well actually is that we've got the source control working now. I don't know if that's a thing I've already got. No, it's not. But anyway, that's a thing that we've done. I will put this as the end of this week. Just to be, again, kind of generous and realistic, because there's a lot of things that are kind of happening at once now, so I can extend these estimates slightly. Did that not enter? Am I just inputting this wrong, or is it just not working? There we go. Hopefully that works. Oh, now it's updated. I just don't think it was doing it properly before. Yeah, this seems properly organised now. This one, maybe not so much. There we go, I suppose it's okay. But it does mean that I've got a lot of stuff that I need to kind of look at doing today, so I will see if this is compiled. So I will recompile the entire project, also go over to the actual test level that we've got. And now we should also have an additional class in here. We do not for some reason. I'm guessing it just hasn't shown up in the content browser yet, so I'll reload that once this is done. Again, I'll have this open, see if there's anything else we can do inside. So if we open our Epics roadmap, so this is the thing that I've been kind of working on as preparation for actually filling out our Jira board. If I go, I can't remember how far down I got. I know I got past financing. You can see all the things that I've crossed off. There we go. So I think I got to this part. So if I go over to our roadmap, it's a bit easier to see the different breakdowns on here. What does this have issue with now? Show log. Oh, that's all the same issues were happening before, because all of these variables are missing now. If I can get the... I need to reopen the project basically. So let's get this reloaded. No, it's not showing up for some reason. Let me open up the folder again and just see if it's made the classes. Not for some reason. I'm going to try that again. Doesn't exist. I don't know why it thinks it does. Let's try. I will try loading that up with just the default settings. Okay, I think I've just broken it again. Let me try recompiling. Didn't really have to do a lot, but it should recognise that there's a missing file now, at least. Oh, I don't know what it's done. Did it crash? Oh, Discord's just decided it's going to open. Okay. Right, gonna work now, hopefully. No. Again, let's try reopening the engine now that I've made that change, or I've deleted it. Hopefully it'll rediscover what's going on there. There we go. I might have to wait for this to finish. While it's doing that, again, I'll just open this up quickly. So, put the editor UI. Start up. Because the easiest thing to do is add some labels. I'll make this public, I think. Quite an important one. It's not too developer-y, it's something that most people, I think, understand. High priority on that. Time tracking. I imagine it will take him some time to get this done, so I will give it a day's worth of work. Probably would be longer, to be honest. We will see. I'm hoping he's got some design stuff by the end of next week. I think I'll target most of my stuff at the end of the week. I want to move this task to something else. Change the parent to shared components. There we go. Use. Actually, I shouldn't need to do this for a child component. Just I'll get rid of that. Okay, let's open this up. So everything for the voxel placement, we've got voxel smoothing toggle, saving and loading indicator. Quite a lot actually needs to go into this. So smoothing toggle, shape type icons, material type icons. We've got shape material, brush type icons. What else is there? We've got the toggle, surface placement needs to go into shared components. I'll open that up now. Surface placement mode toggle. So this is editor mode toggle, so this is things like whether or not placing voxels, props, or prefabs. Excuse me. Excuse me again. I think I must be getting a cold. Had kind of a runny nose for a few days. So the location, whether or not surface toggle mode is on and what mode we are in. That's fine. Oh, actually, hang on. There we go. So the 3D cursor is something that, while we want the voxel highlight location, we also want the real world location of the camera so that you can have a bit more precision with where you're looking, and hopefully that makes it a bit more intuitive as well. And it will show you when you're touching the surface of an object as well and whereabouts on that surface you're looking at. So that will be quite helpful for like surface placement mode when looking at other props. There was another toggle mode as well that I was going to introduce. It's for voxel placement. Oh no, it's for prop placement actually. It is a child issue. Prop overlap toggle. We've got. I'm trying to think if there's anything else really for that. Just for prop highlighter box. I genuinely don't think there's anything else, unless we want maybe ghost props. Show where it would go or how it would look. I'm thinking potentially I could do that in code rather than just, yeah, that probably makes more sense, rather than just having to make something unique every time. I think that's everything for props. Well, that's specific to props anyway. Don't know about prefab placement just yet. That's cross staff, 3D cursor, voxel location highlight, yep, smoothing toggle highlight, drop hovering highlight, 3D cursor implementation. All of that's now done. Obviously there's still more stuff to actually add. This is just the stuff that I've got in this document. So my main priority is getting this document finished so that we can work solely in Jira. And I don't have to be in multiple places at once. Just double check on this compiling thing. However, you must recompile module before it appear in the content browser. Failed to automate. That's fine. Okay. So I can't actually compile it, so it doesn't actually work just yet. But what I'll do is I'll edit it inside of Visual Studio for now. Right, so we have all of this shit in this file basically that I need to put in. All these defines. For this, put it in there. I think that should be all good. We've also got, let's see, we've got these, but these actually need putting in the, what I'm going to do is put them in both places and then just edit them down in the header file, because we need basically the definitions and the implementations for these. Because apparently the way I was using it before isn't correct. You can't just dump extern keywords in a header file, they have to be in a definition file. I don't actually have anything that I need in terms of constructor and destructor, so I'll actually get rid of those. I think that's legal. C++, I don't think I actually need them. So this is where I need the extern keyword here. Extern keyword cannot belong in this header file, so I'll get rid of those. And also I will get rid of the definitions as well. I think this is how it works. It might be the other way around, but we'll see. It might be that the extern keyword just can't have a definition, but I believe this is how it's supposed to work. So I just need to get rid of all of the actual assignments here. There we go. I think that's everything. I think that's fine. Let's try recompiling that. I'd be surprised if this worked out of the box, but give it a go. Hop back into here quick. So we've got scene switching. That needs to be something that I need to do as part of. What's the compiler said this time? Show log. Probably a lot of shit that's just broken. Great how it didn't actually tell me where it was, just that it was in this file. There we go. Is this not including the set? Let me just double check what this email said. So I had an email that basically clarified how this should have worked. And I'm just going to read it now just to make sure that I'm doing it properly. These declarations should be marked as extern. Right, so I actually need it the other way around. So I'm going to I wonder if it would throw errors if I retroactively deleted the class component of this. So I don't actually need it. I don't know, let's have a look. Why not? Let's try that. This should work, hopefully. Give this a go. This is the way that I've been told to do it, so if this doesn't work, then I'm going to be a bit stuck. Again, this could take a while, so I'll just open up this quickly. So this would be a part of, would be content design, props, global features. Okay, well at least that's less of an issue than it was before. I think I can just either try that again or reopen the project and it should fix the issue. I actually did it. Nice. So now I need to actually make sure that these code changes work. I'm quite certain there's going to be some kind of a crash. Oh, actually did work, that's nice. We also had some features in there which I updated, which is good. Starts off with a bigger brush size so I don't have to edit it manually every time. I'd say that's a decent size. It's quite a nice pattern actually, considering. It's a good size to have, I suppose. Good like default brush size. See how that works. Yeah, this is definitely too slow at the moment. I need to investigate how to speed this up. This happened as soon as I introduced collisions. So what I might do is I might bump that up in the priorities list as one of the features that we really need to look at soon. Just because this is like kind of unacceptably slow. Can't really have this in the final build. Not too bad when it's smoothing out, to be fair, it's just when it's introducing all of the new voxels into the scene. This is quite nice. Still. I do like this brush size actually, it's quite nice. Yeah, that's nice, I like that. Good having this voxel highlighter now as well, so you can actually see where it is you're placing stuff, which we didn't have before. That's cool, that's a pattern type I've not seen before, this kind of thin, flat top. Yeah, I can quite easily see like gameplay happening on this kind of pattern, to be fair. It's moments like this where I'm like, it spurs me on a bit, because you can kind of get a visual in your head for how it might look. But you can kind of picture it. Like, you can kind of see, you know, potentially someone running around here, or some animals kind of messing around. Things running up hills, maybe. And obviously this will all kind of be carefully designed as well, so while some of this may look a bit janky now, Josh will carefully kind of go over all of this and really make it, you know, look nice and behave like an actual level, like as a design piece of content. So even the bits that are a bit rough, which there aren't that many of, that look alright, to be fair, they'll be removed, you know, manually once. So I would, for example, make a hill like this, and then go in block by block. I'd say switch to the column thing or the cube thing. I'd edit this down a little bit, and I'd say I want to get rid of that one, rid of that block, get rid of that one there, that one there. Until, you know, it kind of looks more smooth, maybe more hill-like. There we go, something like that. Say that looks, you know, more reasonable. It's a bit weird, so maybe we might, you know, go in and we might want to remove that one. And then maybe add something in, not there, but maybe there. You know, you might do the same again, break it up a little bit, you might add something in here. And you can see how this kind of terrain would start to shape up quite nicely, and how it wouldn't be something that maybe looks a bit off, you know. So like that. And that's how I would say is like a nice basic play space, maybe somewhere a bit unnatural. Maybe this could be like a pathway running through it, something like that. So it's quite nice. I will edit the smoothing slightly, I think, at some point, just because there are some kinks that I want to work out. There's also this one block type that we originally had in, which was a replacement for, I believe it would have been a replacement for this kind of shape. So rather than this being a corner piece, this would have been a full tilted diagonal that would have linked up down here as well. So these would have all been smoothed out, basically, these weird jaggies, and that would eliminate the only issue that we have so far with the smoothing system. So this would be one smooth face rather than it not being. But the only issue with that is it kind of breaks to some extent our current design philosophy, let's say. So, and the reason it does that is because everything so far occupies just one voxel cube. If, however, we were to introduce this new block, it would occupy two. Not only would that mean a code rework, but also it'd kind of break the visual aesthetic a little bit with some of the things that we've been doing so far. And it might also introduce some kind of weird edge cases in the future that we aren't quite sure of yet. So I'd have to do a lot more thinking about that before even investigating it as an option, just in case it does heavily break existing code, or there's a potential for it to give us a lot of overhead in the future when designing like the AI system, for example, because AI navigation is going to be quite difficult as it is. So potentially that could be a big problem later down the road. Yeah, so far this is nice. I'm happy with it. I like the direction that this editor's going in. There is this one block that still needs updating. I will do that at some point on stream, I think. I think I have it somewhere, but I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, we've done one of the jobs for today, which is to do the settings file. So I'll go back over to the Jira doc. I'm also just going to reply to the email quick that I was sent and just say that, yeah, this all works, thanks. There we go, so I've replied to that email. I can close it all down now. For some reason Pretzel has stopped. I don't know when that stopped. I'd assumed it'd been playing this whole time, to be honest. I don't like to listen to some of the Pretzel music sometimes because it does get a bit repetitive for me. Obviously it's good to have something on in the background for you guys. I do wish I had like a library of, you know, normal music that I could listen to. Let me reopen this, doesn't seem to be working. There we go. Yeah, that's better. Okay, that's actually working now. So let me go to my board. So variable cleanup is done now. Let me just see if there are any subtasks outstanding. I believe there's that one thing. I'm going to set all of these to live because I want it to look complete. There we go. Like, even though they're not technically live, are they saying that I guess I could leave them as built and then set them to live in the evaluation stage? Yeah, I'll do that instead. Makes more sense, and also it means we can be more thorough with the testing and everything. Right. Okay, let's close that down. So that's another thing now. One thing that I need to do. So these are my assigned tasks. The most immediate one is this one. Now I'm not entirely sure if I need to expose a lot of these. So what I might actually do is have a word with Josh about what he needs and why. But I suppose there's no harm in at least having a look at exposing this, because it is just like a line of code really. It's just exposing it using the same line of code I've used elsewhere. So that should be a relatively quick thing to do. There's also update livestream package. That's not a big priority. I will work on this soon. So I'll expose the variables. It really won't take me long, and then I'll do that. But before I do, I'm just going to have a quick toilet break. And I will be back in a second. Hello, right, so I'm actually back a little bit early. Okay, let's close this off. Okay, so the next thing that we need to work on then, exposing these variables. I will move that over to the in progress tab. Whole point for us with the in progress tab as well is we don't want to overload too many things into here at once so that we're kind of focused and on track, which is why there's this max number in here. I think I've spoken about it before. My goal personally is to have one of my tasks in here at any given time and really finish those before moving on to anything else. So there is a slight issue with this actually, in that Josh won't be able to edit these values because they're defined. I will just quickly, let's do some research and just see if it's possible to expose defines to the editor. I don't think it is. I mean, I would have thought it's something that you can do. I can't see why not. Let's have a look. Let's just search this page for define. Nope. No, it's all about exposing blueprints and stuff. So it might actually be easier if I just leave this and then Josh can open this, because it is fairly plain text, to be fair. There's nothing too crazy in these settings files that you shouldn't be able to understand. It's not like proper code. So long as it doesn't change, obviously, the actual variable definitions themselves and is only changing the numbers, so you should be fine with that. So what I might actually do is consider that task complete. And just give Josh an overview on how to edit those. I mean, it's literally just like editing a text file anyway, so. With that being said, blueprints might need to make use of some of these. Let me just think a second. So, there's the starting locations, there's the max camera velocity, that shouldn't need exposing. Distance increment shouldn't need exposing. Yeah, none of these should actually need exposing to UI. These are just settings, so I will leave that. I'll leave that as built. Oh, that's the other thing. Yeah, this doesn't even have any sub things, so I'm going to. If I should delete this or mark it as built. I will delete it because I don't want. Basically, if I can remove stuff from the Jira board, I'm going to, so I don't have any clutter. So that leaves me with either updating the livestream package or this positional toggle thing. So let's increment that over to there. Let's open it up in here. Let's close the settings files because we don't actually need them anymore. So what we're going to do is look in. Oh, that's always showing up. Let's look in, I believe it's the editor file where we actually do this. Let's have a look. It's the prop highlight. Maybe we don't do it in here then, I thought we did. No, let's try in prop controller. Yeah, here we go. So let me quickly explain what I want to do in the game, so I will try and show it off visually before I build it, just so that you guys kind of know what I'm doing. So let's start the editor again. Let's load up this environment which we have. That's nice. Right, so now this is loaded in. In fact, I'm going to clean this up a bit. I've been meaning to do this for a while because it's not actually lined up properly. Let me choose the cube brush. Let me flatten it by changing the z-axis. Oh, that isn't what I wanted to do. One thing I don't have yet is I don't have a... Why is that not flattening out all the way it should do? Maybe I've just not done it enough times. Oh well. Put this in, why not? Looks nice either way. Oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'll just load it back. Right, sorry, got a bit sidetracked there. So let's go into... Yeah, this may take a while to reload. Hopefully it'll speed up in a second. There we go. So, let's say we're placing props down, so let's go into prop mode and surface placement mode. In fact, no, we want to turn surface placement mode off. Let's say we wanted to spawn an object inside of a tree. Wait for the loading system to be done. Actually, this still is processing. Another thing I need to optimize, but hopefully that gets fixed later on. So we see how this is highlighting, and that's broken again for some reason. That was working before. I need to have a look at that and fix it. But let's say we wanted to place an object inside of this tree. We can't. So this is something that I want to have as an option to turn on or off. There's also another bit, so that shouldn't take too long, that's quite a simple addition, but there's also this other feature, which is I want to prevent it from spawning things if they share potential collision boundaries. So I shouldn't, under the current system, be able to place a tree underneath this one, because it will overlap, and I want to prevent that. So I need to add that bit of code in that prevents overlap from happening in that instance, and also I need to be able to turn it on or off. So let's start off by... Well, actually I just want to quickly see why the highlighting thing isn't working, because that was working before. I'm not quite sure why, to be honest. So let's have a quick look. Because nothing has changed, which is strange. Is this the old code? This looks like the old code again. Why is this not saved? Or is it the old code? This does look like it. I'm not sure what's happened here, why it hasn't saved. Okay, anyway, regardless, let's move on. So let's go and do what it was we were setting up to do. So in here we have, I believe it's this code. So what I want to do is convert all of this stuff that we had before into a generic function that works both ways. So it works checking from the prop that you're looking at to the prop that you're trying to spawn, but I also want it to work the other way so that it stops props from being able to be spawned into occupied space. So the only thing that I need to get rid of here, well, I basically need to get this to return a boolean, so let's set the function definition up here. So it needs to return bool. It needs to check is prop placement occupied. Then we'll create a definition for this. I'll move it up to spawn a new prop actually, just so that they're bundled together. I don't think it needs to take any parameters other than maybe int prop prop ID, so it knows what prop we're referring to. I don't think there's any other external data I need other than that, so let's create that definition. And then we can copy the majority of this code over. Or is it even in this section? It's somewhere. Yes, it's this pushback thing here. Let me just double check all of this. I need to actually find a bit of code that does what I want it to. I've actually completely forgotten what bit of code it is that it does that to. I think it's this one. But I'm not sure why I'm setting everything else before spawning stuff in. So if the space that we're looking at is empty, then for each of the props in the scene, so find a suitable position for it in the list. I think I'm actually doing this really inefficiently, this entire thing. Oh no, this is just checking if the space is active or not, that's fine. If it isn't, set it to true. Setting all the variables, set prop bounds. True. And then this is the bit that I'm actually confused about. Because we're checking the collision volume in the world, but we're doing it in the wrong place, I think. Oh no, this is just actually setting all of the collision boundaries. This isn't even the check, so I need to find where the check is happening. It must then be in the editor somewhere, in the editor code. I must have just missed it. Find props from voxel location. Might be within. Might just be a side effect to this code actually. It might just be we're finding props from voxel location and then it's returning this. So maybe I'll have to completely rewrite this code, I would have thought. Sorry this is taking me so long, by the way. I'm just trying to figure out what it is I've actually done. Because I do know what I've done in terms of when I'm looking at the code, but it's like I need to organise it all in my head so I can work out what I do and don't need to do. So it's something similar to this. So for each of the x increments that I have, we need to check occupied space and make sure that it's okay, but we need to do it in reverse. So it's actually relatively simple, I think. So let's go stick this up in the function definition I made. Find it. There we go. So this should actually be called prop instance ID, not prop ID. Let's update the definition in here as well, just so they share the same thing. Makes readability a bit easier, makes consistency a bit nicer. So yeah, we actually want to check the thing that's passed in. So yeah, so this is the object that we're trying to spawn in. We want to check its occupied space. Probably would have been easier if I'd have moved some of these increment definitions up to here instead, but and of course we're not trying to erase it from anything, so we can get rid of these 2 lines of code here. Let me just check what this does. This is saying if it equals the prop instance ID that we're trying to look for, rid of it. Yeah, it's saying erase it at that space, but what we actually want to do is we want to say if that space is occupied by something else, so not if it's equal to, but if it's greater than 0, or greater than -1, I believe is the number that we normally set. Oh no, actually I've got something which I can do, which is, they're not giving me anything there. Oh. That's annoying. We can also remove this for loop, I think, because this for loop is for checking. Let's see. Well, we can get rid of that anyway, I'm pretty sure. Let's get rid of that. So, we're incrementing through each space, and we're saying if prop data storage, if the collision volume at that point touches any of the collision volume in the world, so we'd want to do, what would it be? Would it be this thing that we've deleted? I'm just confusing myself now. There's a lot of code that kind of overlaps with each other that I've done elsewhere. It's probably the most confusing thing I've had to do because I've overhauled a lot of stuff. Yeah, let's really break it down. So It's somewhat confusing. I also want to double check something. I want to check an old video of mine and see what code I changed and why it hasn't saved, because I'm somewhat confused as to what happened there. What video would it be in? Volumetric prop storage maybe? Or introduction to Jira. Let's open this up. Mute that, I don't want it. Did I not save it? I must have saved it, right? Yeah, I did save it. Why is this reverted? Let me compare this video with the actual code. Genuinely don't know why this is converted to... Let me just see how much actually needs changing, because if it's not a lot then I'll Oh no, it's not that it's reverted, it's that I updated the variables, didn't I, before? Okay, so now I need to go through and actually make sure that the variables I've introduced do what they're supposed to, because I think I might have broken it. Also, let me double check the definitions of the size boundaries in prop controller just to make sure that I've not edited them incorrectly. So for the tree, those spaces are active. Yeah, that's fine. Let's go back into here. Oh, I see what the issue is. I must have bulk copied and pasted this stuff and forgot to reintroduce pluses and minuses. There we go. That should fix it. I was really confused there for a second. I thought it had reverted to old code, but no, it hasn't. Compile failed, what do you mean? Oh yes, I didn't finish that function, did I? Duh. This is what happens when you jump around too much. I think I have this very chaotic development style that always seems to work out in the end, but I should probably focus a bit more. Where would it have been? Is it even in here? being prop controller, won't it? Right, well now that thing's off my mind anyway, let's recompile that. Make sure the highlighting works properly. Let's press play. Let's load in my test scene. And I just want to switch to that mode. Yeah, that's working again, great. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, to some extent, I wouldn't say start from scratch on this, but try and really work through it from scratch in my head. And work from there. Because I think I'm just confusing myself with adding old code in. So, first of all, we want to check... What do we want to check? So we want to go through all of the selected drop spaces that we have. Oh, but that makes it kind of difficult. I can actually think of a more efficient way to do this. Currently the way I'm setting prop boundaries is by assigning them to each object, but what I can actually do instead is just get it to check a function every time based on the ID. So similar to how this is set up now. But maybe returning something, not sure. That being said though, it's not really a priority, but I mean, I might need to rework it anyway if I'm preemptively checking boundaries. This is kind of a really confusing problem to work through because I need to do multiple things at the same time. Let's start from scratch. So we'll rework this function. We'll make a new version of this function which gives me true or false for different collision positions. So it needs to return a bool. So let's go into the definition here. Where's the old one? Set prop bounds for it's a new function I want to introduce. Create definition. So yeah, I think I'm actually going to end up rewriting this code. I need to find every instance where it's used though and rewrite it, which is going to be confusing. Even more confusing than it already should be. So in here, so I need to pass in an X, a Y, and a Z. So that's the place in the array that I want to check, and I also need to pass in a prop ID. an int. So this is the shape I'm checking against. So I still need this switch statement. So I'm going to put in switch. I will of course remove the old code within it, but for now that's what I need to do. I also need to create an array in here. So call it it's a bool, isn't it? Bool temp array. We'll give this max, is it world size or something to that effect. World width. Oh no, so it's prop stuff, isn't it? So prop. Where is it? It'd be quicker to just check the bloody definition, to be honest. Let's have a look in. Is it finally showing up in the content browser? No, it isn't. So it's not in there, it's in the header. Max object width. Probably rename that to prop, but we'll do that now. And I want the height. So I don't know how much of the other code I'm actually going to be able to replace from doing this, but it might be a significant amount, so we shall see. Does mean a significant rewrite in pretty much all areas though, so that'll be a lot more memory efficient if I do manage to get this working. It will just be more CPU intensive, which isn't too much of an issue for the props because they're actually quite efficient for spawning in anyway. A lot of manual labour though at the moment. As always, by the way, if anyone that's watching currently has any questions or wants to see anything, like say you're bored of me just editing these values, let me know and I'll mess around in the engine for a bit. I'll show you guys what it can do. Just let me know. Oops, that's not what I wanted. There we go. Hiya Jacob, you alright? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to return a comparison basically that says if this is equal to whatever's been passed in. I don't want to make an infinite loop. What I was going to do is call this function again, but that's not what I want to do. Maybe I should just return the array itself. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, and then I can have a function outside of that that compares the two. Or I could just pass in both values actually. Oh no. No, what I'm even on about, I just return that, that's fine. Yeah, temporary. I just want to know if it's true at that location for that particular object type. I'm overthinking it now. Got too many things to think about at the same time. So, get prop collision, prop ID. Right, what can I actually rework from this then? Let's comment this out for now just so I can test other code changes as I go. So the ultimate goal is to remove this collision volume thing, basically. Which actually shouldn't be too difficult thinking about it because I can just return the ID. What I'm going to do, so that I can go through and actually find all of that, I'm going to delete the collision volume here, and then show where it highlights errors in the code. This I no longer need because I don't need to set anything to false. Also, I'll replace this as well eventually. Just need to work on other stuff first. I'll replace the origin code as well to be a similar implementation. So, right, so we need to remove we actually know what the prop ID is currently. Yeah, so we have passed in prop ID, so we can basically say if get what have I called it? Is it get collision or something like that? Get prop collision pass in prop ID. Pass in the X ink, the Y ink, and the Z ink. So if the particular space that we are looking at here contains any kind of collision information, run this. This code I will be replacing eventually with a separate function that will get the origin for that particular ID rather than reading it directly from the object, which again will hopefully be much more memory efficient for props. And in theory actually could remove the need for a max prop size, because we're removing the overhead for those quite a lot. So we could have the max prop height, max prop amount be something quite large. I think we're like reducing the memory profile of it by like half or something, which is pretty crazy. But anyway, let's go through here and remove these. So we can actually remove most of this code. Since we have it now in a separate function. I really hope all these code changes work, because it'll be a nightmare to fix if it doesn't. Again, this is if get prop collision, prop ID. So it's slightly different this time, so we're not passing it in, we're not passing the prop ID in as a parameter, we're getting it directly from the prop itself. And then again, it's just the xinc, yinc, zinc. So this is the prop instance, whereas what we're after is actually the prop model ID, just to clarify. Why is that not happening? Oh, it is, okay. Right, let's compile that, see what changes. Let me just double check actually that I've not removed anything else in the process. Don't think so. Compiler issues. I'm guessing I'm reading from somewhere that I shouldn't be. Going to show me where? Up here. Oh, here we go. Again, this is the same call, so if I can just find a place where I've done that function call, and then I'll copy that quickly. In fact, I'll just write it out, might as well. What's it called? Keep on forgetting. I'm really bad at remembering function names. Don't know if that's because I don't write them very well or what, but in editor camera. Where are we going? Oh, I know why it's not showing up, so it needs to be a public function. And we're doing it inside of editor camera. So let's move get prop collision into the public component. Oh, it already is public. Get prop collision. So what I should do instead is access it through props. Get prop collision, there we go, it's showing up. And I need to do object ID, which is the thing that we're targeting. Or is object ID in this case the... Yeah, so that's not actually the thing that we need. What we need is the same code that we used before, which is prop data storage. We're obviously still using the zinc and stuff, but pass that in. And then this is props. Prop data storage, object ID. There we go. That should solve everything. We shall see. Okay. So I can actually make that function more efficient as well by getting it to just return bools rather than compare against an array each time. Where are we now? Must return a value. Did I not return a value? Maybe I didn't. It does return a value. Why is it saying that it doesn't? It is this that it's throwing the error for, isn't it? No. Let's comment out that entire thing, because we don't actually use it anywhere. I will be annoyed if this breaks everything, but I don't think it will. Let's load up that test scene. Just give it time to do its thing. Here we go. So that's not quite right. Definitely broken something along the way. Need to work out what it's broken. Might be that I've not initialized the array potentially. I think I can initialize it by doing... I think I can initialize the entire thing by doing that. Let's give that a go. Just so it doesn't think that all spaces are occupied at any given time, so it shouldn't do. Try that. And let's load this test scene in. Bit a while to just load the voxels in. Right, there we go. There we go, it's working again. I just need to check if the block overlapping thing is working properly. I just accidentally pressed the load button by accident. I'll just wait for that to finish. Change over to crop mode. Just doing the last of the voxels now, I think. It's always a bit laggy when it's loading stuff in. Come on, you can do it. There we go. Just need to place in two objects, one on top of the other, just see if it double highlights. Yeah, that's all cool. So that's all working. So what I need to do now is replace the other half of that, which is the origin. So let's delete the origin code. Not sure exactly what I'm going to replace it with yet, but we'll see. Get rid of that as well. And then I guess the axis that we want. I guess we could pass in we want it as a number, right? So call this axis. Give it an int, and then it can be from 1 to 3, well 0 to 2. I guess it's not the safest thing in the world, but it works, so we'll do it that way. So we want to copy in the remainder of this code here, basically. rid of that. Copy it into here, and let's rewrite this. So the best way to do it, I guess, is to do another switch. So a switch inside of a switch for each of them. Axis. We want case 0 for the break. So that we don't have the same issue that we were having before, where we were forgetting to put breaks in and it was giving us some really weird behaviour. So all we're doing really is returning whatever values it is we set in here. So it's literally as simple as doing that. It'll look a bit messy, it's not the most elegant thing in the world, but probably the most efficient way to do it that I can think of. I will say again, so I've noticed more people are viewing at the moment. If anyone has any questions or they want to know what it is I'm doing, just let me know, and I'm happy to run people through stuff. Any like conversations welcome, basically. Yeah, switch statements are pretty disgusting. I agree. Especially when you have embedded switch statements, it's pretty nasty. When everything just becomes blue and numbers, that's when you don't want to work in your code anymore. At least now I can just copy this though. One thing I wish you could do is multi-dimensional switches, but that isn't a thing, unfortunately. You have to do them embedded. Same with for statements, actually. I wish you could do like some kind of weird embedded for loop system. I think I set all of those into the right place. I'm pretty sure all the origins for all the objects are the same. So this is just prop ID in this case. If I could actually highlight it properly, there we go. Prop ID. And then as a default, I think we just return 0, to be honest. Wonder if something declarative would be better. I don't really know much about declarative code, to be honest. So you'd have to enlighten me. Or I'd have to look into it. Okay, so let's slowly replace these. Fair enough. The problem that I'm running into though is I'm not technically using an object-oriented coding pattern in this, because I'm kind of technically making my own objects in that I'm saving them in arrays, and I'm saving data about what I consider to be objects in arrays rather than actually storing object constructs. If I was storing object constructs, it would make my life a lot easier, but there's additional memory overhead that I don't want to have to deal with. So this is no longer necessary because we're not setting those anymore. So this would be let me just double check the thing that I just done. What have I just done? Yeah, I just thought I'd double check that. So get prop, won't it? Get prop. I need to standardize all of my naming conventions. Get prop origin, and then we're putting in the prop ID, which in this case is just prop ID. Great. And then here it would be 0, because we want the x-axis. It's actually a lot cleaner than before, which is nice. I mean, obviously it's a bit less efficient because we're having to look through multiple switch statements, but in the grand scheme of things it's not too bad. Obviously if we were affecting hundreds of props at the same time like we are in loading, it might be a bit slow, but it's actually quite fast compared to everything else already, so we don't need to worry too much about performance. It's the voxel system that I'm kind of worried about. Because the voxel system has loads of performance issues currently, but that's mainly to do with object spawning and collision, having that many collision meshes in the scene at any given time. So, oh, one thing I didn't do actually is edit the numbers, I don't think. Or did I? Can't remember. Yeah, there we go, that's actually correct. So now there's a lot of places where I need to actually change this. Prop ID in this case, oh, I think I have to access it manually, which is annoying. I will do that afterwards. Stick that all in there. Oops. If anyone has any questions or anything, just let me know. Or even if anyone notices that I'm doing anything wrong, so that'd be massively helpful. Not that I think anyone's watching that closely, to be honest. One thing I've noticed actually is, regardless of what I'm doing, so long as I'm making progress, people seem to engage more. Or at least like not just immediately click off the channel as a viewer. If I get stuck on stuff, that's when people are like, right, I'm going to bounce. And I don't know if it's because they have more confidence in what I'm doing, or if, I don't know, or if it's just more interesting to watch when I'm not stuck on something, banging my head against the wall. I would have thought that's more entertaining, but apparently not. Okay, so now we need to replace any instance of prop ID here. So that is this line of code here. Bit of a faff, and it will make these lines really ugly, but oh well. Probably not a very efficient way to do it. I should have probably replaced that actually with a... Yeah, frustration isn't entertaining. I didn't think so, but like... In terms of Twitch, like you generally get a certain crowd normally, and at least from experience with other channels, where if someone's failing at something, it generally seems to be a point of entertainment, but yeah, no, I don't think people like it much. What I'm going to do is, instead of doing it this way, where I'm accessing it each time, I'm going to make a new variable called prop ID. So up here, just so that it's a bit more efficient. There we go. And then I can actually replace a couple of these things. So here, for instance, I think there's anywhere else. No, not by the looks of it, so yeah, that's fine. Awesome. I think that's fixed all of the issues that I was potentially having. So let's compile that. Let's run it again. If anyone's interested in the progression of this engine, by the way, and wants to follow along, even if you're not a regular viewer, then giving a follow would be a massive help. Right, what's the issue now? Here we go. I'm guessing this is an editor camera because I didn't check there actually. Yeah. And this is in reference to prop model ID. So again, what I'm going to do is make a copy of this particular line of code and make an assignment so that I can refer to it. I will call it prop ID. And then I can replace quite a few things with this, I think, down the road. Is this collision or origin? This is origin. Prop ID. And then the axis I want is axis 0 because I'm actually affecting the x-axis. It's basically now just a matter of copying and pasting this and changing the ID in here. Changing this to 1, this to 2. There we go. Let's compile that. This should have fixed any other issues I had. I don't think I saw anything else there that was highlighting red. Oh, there's another compile error. Let's have a look. Have I forgotten something? What did it say? What was the exact error? Not all control paths return a value. Alright, what I should do then is just move that outside to there. I think that should fix the problem, because all it's basically saying is that in the instance of like cases where none of these are hit, so let's say we put in 3 or something, that should return anything. Is it still saying the same thing? If it does, then I might have to put stuff in for the brakes as well, which is annoying, but what's this? Unresolved external sim. Set prop bounds. I might not have moved that reference. I don't need to set prop bounds anymore. I don't know if that breaks anything in here though. Yeah. There we go. Thinking about it, I may have removed a bit of code earlier that needed to be in here, but I'm just going to double check. No, I don't think I did. Okay. let's play this now, load the scene in again, wait for the voxels to do its thing. There's two optimizations I want to do to the voxel system, and hopefully once those are implemented, saving and loading should be a lot faster. Get origin. I just want to make sure that the origin's still working, basically, and I think it is, because otherwise these would have the incorrect offset. Although deleting's now not... Oh, I'm in the wrong mode, that's why. Actually change it to thingy. Okay. So it's changing the voxels, not the props. I wouldn't have noticed had this not deleted. I think that's fine. Yeah, seems to be working. Alright, that's cool. Right, back to it. So we've overhauled those two systems. So now, in theory, it should be a lot easier to do the thing I was trying to do, because now rather than having to have an object already exist to be able to check against it, I can just check against what type of object it's going to be, and see if there's any collisions there. So let's uncomment all of this stuff, and this loop here. I'll comment that. So what we're wanting to do is prop placement occupied. So for each space, we want to check if get prop collision, and then the prop ID is the prop instance ID. And then it's all the xinc, y-inc stuff. So if this is the case for the current object that we're looking at, check is any of the existing spaces in the scene, are they active, basically. So I want to loop through all of the objects. I've got a bit of code for this somewhere, I think, in the highlighter in the editor camera. So I'm just going to see if I can borrow that quickly. It would be in... Let's see. Yeah, it'd be this for prop. Oh, I guess I could do find props from voxel location. That works as well. So yeah, that's actually more efficient. So we'll find props from voxel location, and then we will do... So this is where we need to do the mathsy bit. There's a bit of code that already does something similar to this. I think it's in the delete section. Here we go. So this is a bit confusing, but I think this is what we need to do. So for the X position of the current thing, plus the X increment minus the origin at that location. Yeah, I think this is the line of code. Dot size. Yeah, this is it. So yeah, refactoring that code has actually made it easier for me to kind of understand in my head. It's nice. Let's put it in there. So for each of the voxels basically at this position, well, again we need to replace this with prop instance ID. Or do we? No, this is going to be a more confusing calculation here. Because I need to do this inside of this. Oh no, that is actually just prop instance ID. Great. No more work necessary. I don't think, anyway. So yeah, for each of the objects at the location that we're checking, we want to, if just double check all of this quickly. So this doing, if this equals the prop instance ID, no, that's not what we want to do. We want to check if this is occupied, basically. So is more than -1. Oops, I want to select the whole thing. There we go. More than -1, there we go. We don't want to erase it, obviously, we just want to return false. And else we return true, I think. What am I doing, by the way? So, I think you guys weren't on here when I explained this earlier, but I will try and explain again. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to compare the collision boundaries of the prop that I'm trying to place with all of the existing collision boundaries in the world already to see if it overlaps with anything. And if it does overlap with anything within voxel space, it won't spawn it in. So it's basically just to check if that space is already occupied and if I can do it. But because the props that I'm spawning in have a volume, I need to check against every space in that volume and then check that against every space within the scene. So it's a bit more intensive than you might think it would be. But I think I've done it the most efficient way I can. Ignoring all of the accesses that I have to do and stuff, but in terms of implementation I think this is the most efficient way to do it. Yeah, so this actually needs to be different. This needs to be... Oh no, that's fine. Ignore me. Not quite comparing it against everything in the world, because I'm actually just checking it against one space, but that's the easiest way to explain it. So this line of code looks really scary, but this is just basically saying we want to access the prop reference IDs at the location that we're checking against. and making sure that nothing is in that space. It's kind of very confusing, so while I think this works, I'm actually not entirely sure. So I guess we'll just have to test it and find out. Let's compile this. It might not work, but we'll see. Oh, we've not even called this actually, so we'll let it compile in the background, but I do need to add this check-in. Let's run it anyway. I just want to see if I've broken any other code first. Let's load the scene in again. There we go. Okay, so prop highlighting works still. Doesn't allow me to place on top of the object, which is great. So the thing that I'm trying to do now, so I've already got the check that doesn't allow me to place it in the space that is occupied, but if, say, it's below that object, it does allow me to place it, and what I'm trying to do is make it so it checks its full collision volume as well, and just checks that it can actually place it there in the first place. So I just need to find the right area to insert that code function call and give it the right parameters, and then I can add everything in. So if not prop storage space active, and what was it called, is prop placement occupied, and then it takes the prop that I'm currently working with, which is prop ID. I think that's all it takes, is it? Yeah, prop instance ID. Oh no, that's not quite what it takes. Prop instance ID is different, so I need to give it... What's it even checking? X position. So maybe I just need to pass in X, Y, and Z instead. This would be wrong, I've just realised. This wouldn't be prop instance ID, this would be prop ID. So what I need to do is pass that in instead. This, however, still needs to be there, I think. But I will replace that with an XYZ instead. So rename this to prop ID instead, which is actually what I am supposed to be passing in. Int X, int Y, and int... I don't know why I'm... Sorry, I don't know why I'm writing the int part. I need X, Y, and Z, which are parameters that are passed in. Why is that? I don't think that code highlighting is updated properly. Prop ID, so everything that calls the collision checks and the origin checks needs to be updated with that. So if I see origin listed anywhere, get prop origin. So every instance of this needs to be updated to have the new thing instead. Because we actually just want to pass in the object type, we don't want to pass in the object itself. So we want to check Yeah, that's fine. Now we need to update any instance of prop instance ID, so this should be changed instead to X, Y, and Z. It actually makes it simpler overall. If the code highlighting will update properly. There we go, so I think that's everything updated properly now. Hopefully I've not broken anything. Doesn't like this one though for some reason. I think it's because I removed the... Oh no, I removed something right at the start, which isn't... What was it I removed? Let's go back. Prop reference IDs. Just have to redo that quickly, sorry about that. So let's get rid of these. Did I update the definition for that? Probably not. There we go. Okay. So back to here. I'm not sure if this is not is problem. Yeah, it should be not there. So let's see if this works. Either it'll break everything or it'll work fine. So we'll find out which. It's like, now that I've implemented it, it's not actually too complicated. It just took a while to wrap my head around what I was doing. The code refactored definitely helped in that. I'm glad I did it. So again, let's just wait for the voxels to load in. I might build a simpler test scene so that the voxels don't take so long to process. Just literally have it as a flat plane with some props on it, but then it's a bit harder to test. But anyway, let's change into prop mode. So underneath, in theory that shouldn't be allowed, but it is. So I'm guessing my conditions aren't being met properly. Yeah, the solution, like, it's kind of... Like, to be honest, I knew exactly what it was I needed to do. I knew exactly what the code would kind of look like in my head. But putting all of the pieces together in actual code format is like kind of a challenge. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So the place that we're looking at isn't active and not is placement occupied. So it is getting called. So in theory this is returning false every time, which isn't good. Maybe this should return true actually. Yeah, this should be the other way around in these statements, I think. There we go. I mean, I'm still not convinced it was working because it was doing it wrong both times, but... Excuse me. Okay, that's compiled, so let's try this out. Load the test scene in. So even like with all of this stuff that I've done, all of the prop spawning stuff's really quick. Okay, so that actually does work, which is surprising. So let's just test every layer of this just to make sure I'm not going insane. Awesome. So yeah, that works. I wasn't expecting it to work first time, but well, I say first time. It took a lot to get to this point, but yeah, it works properly, which is good. One thing that needs to be done, I think, is to have a highlight of an active highlight of the current prop that I'm spawning in. But again, it's kind of a quality of life feature. I think I'll wait until the UI is finished, or at least coming along before I implement that. So that's good, that's all working now. I can go back to Jira, so let's open Jira up. It's nice to have Jira now because it's like you can kind of visually see everything working and see how much progress I've made in a day, which is good. So this proposed feature is now built. I've called both types of checks, so both world to prop and prop to world collision checks to make sure that both are clear before spawning the object in. So now I just need to hook in this into a toggle, which I've done plenty of times before, so it should be fairly straightforward, and it's just a matter of wrapping that in a Boolean condition basically, just to all that happens. So actually just before this I'm going to have so I need a boolean in here called something toggle. I believe it will be up top because I think that's where I've put my other toggles, or is it not in here? No, it'll be an editor, sorry. So in the editor, let's find it. Surface place, here we go. So this is all the toggles that I have currently. Surface placement mode, overlap mode. So initially I will have overlapping be false, so that you can't do that. I don't think I have a backwards reference to... I don't think I have a backwards reference to the editor from here, so what I'm going to do instead is put in a bool that is overlap mode in here, but obviously I need to update the function definition as well. Spawn a new prop, bool overlap mode, there we go. Save that. Let's get rid of... Oh yeah, sorry, no, if overlap mode. Then I will call this here. Just think for a second. Yeah, I can actually replace this bit of code as well, so let me just paste that back in there, cut that out, put this up here instead. Default it to true, but then if overlap mode, I want to check this and also if it's empty. In fact, I'm doing this check in the wrong place. I can do this up here, I think. Yeah, there's a much easier way to do this, I'm sure. Let me just double check that I can do it up in this if statement instead. I think prop ID is passed in, isn't it? So yeah, and the position doesn't change. Right, so yeah, I can actually revert that if statement to what it was originally, stick this code in here instead, so I'm not calling it multiple times. Get rid of all this shit, because I don't actually need it. And what I want to say is, if overlap mode is false, or both of these conditions are true. So if not overlap mode, or the space is empty and it is not occupied, not prop placement occupied. So it's a bit confusing, the terminology there. That function should probably be called something else, but I think that's essentially what I need to do. The only thing I need to update now is the call in editor camera to have that Boolean toggle passed in, which is right down here apparently. And that will be overlap, that will be the local overlap mode. There we go. So overlap mode is currently true, so let me just test this out and make sure that the existing implementation still works, and then I will try it when it's false. And just make sure everything still works properly. Because one nice side effect of me having updated the origin code is that I can actually have multiple props occupy multiple origin spaces and still have it work, I think, but I haven't tested that yet. Where's it throwing an error? One in prop. I'm going to say if it's saved to a file, it doesn't matter if it's overlapped. So the bit that's throwing an error is when I load prop state. But obviously if stuff is already saved to a file, we want to load in all of it. Doesn't matter if overlap mode is true or false. So I'm just going to pass in overlap mode is turned... Oh, actually, sorry, it'll be true, won't it? Overlap mode is true. So overlap mode is enabled. That means I can't actually test this just yet for working properly. Yeah, and then let's go all the way down to the bottom. So replace prop. I don't actually use replace prop anywhere. It's something that I built a while ago. I don't know if I ever will use it. What I'm going to do is presume that whatever it is you're replacing doesn't care about overlapping, so I'm also going to set this to true here. Oops, I want to delete that actually. Just need to add in an extra parameter. So we'll also assume that's true. If I'm replacing a prop, then presumably I don't give a shit. Right, that should be all set up now. Let's just test this. So this will be with it turned on, so I should be able to place props anywhere and it shouldn't break. Hopefully. I don't think there's anything in the prop controller code that should mean it breaks, because the IDs for the props are not based on their origin position anymore, which is what they used to be. Just load everything in. So that didn't break, so already we're off to a good start. So let's change into prop mode. Yep, so that's allowing me to place, I think, 2 objects inside of another. maybe not the best behaviour in the world, but it really doesn't matter because, well, let's put it this way, if you wanted to place two objects right in the centre of each other, then that should be a design freedom that you have, even if they're the same object. Maybe I should check to see if they're the same object or not, but you might want multiple rotations or something stupid, so I'm not going to limit the user in that way. That works, that's all good. So now let's try it with the toggle. So we'll go back into the editor, we'll go to this definition and we'll change that to... So that's with overlap mode being false actually. Let's see what it does when it's true. Because I'm pretty sure I passed that in. Yeah, I did. So maybe my way round inside of the actual function call itself is wrong, but I will double check that in a second. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a second as well. Yeah, so I actually got it the wrong way round in terms of the terminology. So I will just go back in and quickly fix that. So in editor camera, this should default to false. We should not be able to overlap, and then in the in prop controller, wherever spawn in new prop is. So if overlap mode is true, i.e. things can overlap, or the space is empty and it isn't occupied relative to itself, then spawn it in. So yeah, that's the way around that I want it. So I just got that that way around wrong, but that should be fine now. So now what we want to do is we want to hook it into the editor camera. So that's this is a relatively simple process. I've done it plenty of times before. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go into the, is it the edit preferences or is it project settings? I think it's project settings. Yeah, because editor preferences is the stuff relating to UE4, which isn't what we want. So then we go down to the input tab here. We add an action mapping, I believe. We need to choose a key. So I believe we don't have M bound. So M would be surface placement, M would be overlap. So let's call this overlap mode. Or I want to rename it the same as the other things I've done, so toggle overlap mode is what I'll call it, just so that it's consistent with the other settings I've got. Set this to M for monkey. What's M in the phonetic alphabet? I should know it, but for some reason it's not, won't come to me right now. There we go, so the M key on the keyboard. Don't think that's set up anywhere else for anything. So yeah, that's all set up now. So what I do now is I go into here, I can copy one of these functions because they're virtually identical other than the names that I'll give it. So toggle overlap mode. And then again I will put that at the end there, but then I need to make a function definition called toggle overlap mode. So I'll just copy this function definition here, rename it, create a definition, and then it's literally as simple as this thing here. So all I'm doing is saying, oh, the song, hang on. It is this song here. You're lucky you asked when you did, because I caught it on literally the last second. So had I not done that, you would not have been able to see the song. But there you go. It is Inseparable by Leon. I'll give that one a like, actually. I'll add that to the playlist. There you go. But yeah, sorry, so this is literally as simple as saying overlap mode equals not overlap mode. And that's it. So then that's hooked up to the function call. We have a key for it. That just inverts it. So yeah, this should all be set up now. So we'll give this a test in the editor just to see what's actually happening. One thing I wish I had for situations like this is I wish I had some kind of keyboard and mouse camera that might add a bit more context to what I'm doing, but it would be very hard to set up. I'd need like multiple booms and stuff to start doing that. But at some point I do want to up the stream quality. One thing I tested before actually was to have a whiteboard camera, so I could, rather than use paint, draw stuff on the whiteboard, which to some extent was helpful. But I had to dismantle that because I needed the lamp that it was strapped to for other things. So overlap mode, what is it by default? Is it false? I'm not going to exit out of the editor, I just want to open this up. Yes, it's false by default, so things cannot overlap. Let's test that. So yeah, that seems to work. Let's test underneath it. Yeah, that's not allowing me to spawn stuff in. But then if I press the M key, did that do anything? I'm not sure if it did. M. I don't think that did it properly. I don't know if I recompiled it fully. Let's try recompiling again. Sometimes it doesn't, which is irritating, and I've run into that problem so many times. At least I'm aware of it though. If I wasn't aware that sometimes it doesn't compile straight away, then I'd be banging my head against a bloody wall or something. So, because basically I'd be trying to fix an issue that doesn't exist. So in prop placement mode, it's false. We press M, and now it's working. So it just looks like the editor hadn't actually bloody caught up properly, which is annoying, but it's what it is. Let's toggle that on. Let's toggle that off. There we go. So yeah, that's all fine. That's all working well. So yeah, that's just one other toggle that we have now added to the editor. Which is going to hopefully be quite useful for so I'll show you what the use case is for that. I mean, I wanted to add that code in anyway, but I wanted also the option to be able to turn it off. So the use case that I would see for this is when you are placing, say you're placing lots of trees, for instance. Sometimes if you're looking at it wrong, whatever reason, maybe you're looking at a different position, you can actually end up, I mean, I'm not exactly doing a very good job of demoing this right now, but you can end up inside of the thing that you don't want to be inside of. Certain things where the meshes, for example, are smaller than the actual object itself. But what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to paint onto the landscape like that without the issue of things overlapping. Let's say if you're doing a big tree brush, for example, like one feature that we're considering for the future is being able to paint props using similar implementation to the voxel brush system, so you could paint trees, for instance. That's like a nice quality of life feature that we're not sure about yet, because it will be a bit of a bigger undertaking than the ones I've been working on recently. But yeah, that code kind of lays the foundation for that, because it means that when you're spawning in a random distribution of objects, we make sure that they're not overlapping or anything like that. Like I say, especially useful for trees. So you could make forests a lot faster than I have now, for instance. But yeah, this is all looking nice. I like that also I managed to get this feature in as well, where you can look slightly below a ramp and it'll place it submerged. So for trees, obviously you want to be able to submerge tree trunks in a hill slightly. You don't want them floating like I have done here. So yeah, I mean, I think in terms of prop placement, the editor is essentially complete. Like I say, there might be that brush feature we implement at some point, but that is kind of a nice quality of life thing. It's not too big of a deal if we don't get it working. All of the base features are now kind of in, and I can focus on other stuff, which is nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to smooth, just to test the tools, I suppose. I'm going to try and smooth things out. Would it be helpful to enable a cursor to follow the landscape so you're not placing... So by that, do you mean you can look at a surface and it will place it on top? Is that what you're meaning? Is essentially what I've got active at the moment is something called surface placement mode, which I think is what you're asking about. So you notice it does float in the air currently, but if you're looking at a surface, it'll do that. Or do you mean so that it ignores props, for example? Because I think maybe ignoring props would be a good one, but I don't know how to set that up, because it would mean getting the it would basically mean getting the... I'm essentially using a raycast to see where I'm looking at, and obviously that raycast includes trees at the moment, but there may be a way to set them on different channels so that props and voxels share different raycast properties. So see there, I was able to place one on the side of it by accident. Might be a way to actually props, so that might be a nice, yeah, that might be a nice addition if I think I know what you mean. But yeah, let's test the rest of the tools quickly. So place a well in the middle. Let's have a couple of rocks somewhere. Let's test that out. Have a rock next to that. We'll toggle that mode on. I guess I could place a rock in the well. Why not? Since we've got that new overlapping mode working. Have a big rock cluster somewhere. Don't want that one. Let's have a big boulder. There we go. Can have a nice rock cluster. Let's get rid of that one. Let's place it somewhere a bit nicer. Let's have it in this corner, maybe. Yeah, that kind of works. I mean, it's up the hill, right? So that's fine. Guess I could place one somewhere else as well. Let's try. I can't remember what's bound to 6. It better not be the big person. No, there's an even bigger rock cluster here. So let's put that in this corner. There we go. Let's add a couple more rocks just to make it look a bit more distributed. And also now, of course, we can place rocks inside of each other, so if we really wanted to, we could. So it means we could layer up these clusters and stuff like that, which is nice. So in fact, I could make it so that Josh could break these up into separate rock types, and then we can just have it, you know, have them layerable, basically. What else could I do? Let's smooth out this stuff on the edge here, because I've not liked this for a while. So let's go into voxel mode. UI's broken. Yeah, for some reason the UI isn't turning on or off now that I've just discovered a bug anyway, so I suppose that's a good thing. Get rid of... Sorry that it's taking so long, but yeah, if we get rid of one thing I do want to implement is a kind of like a 3D crosshair, so that it shows you exactly where on the landscape you're looking at any given time. So not only is the crosshair on the X and Y axis of the screen, but also it has depth as well, which I think would be very helpful for using the editor. And like obviously looking at this and using it, it's kind of apparent to me that it's something that's necessary. So yeah, let's get rid of a few things here. And then what we can do once we've smoothed this out is maybe look at making this look a bit nicer. So, I mean, to be fair, it looks quite nice already. Maybe want to get rid of a few of these jagged lines. So let's reduce the brush size because it was actually long in one axis. Which is a feature that you'll be able to see in the UI at some point. We just haven't built the UI for that yet. Let's get rid of that bit. Let's get rid of there and there. Make a VR view. Yeah, we were actually wanting to consider looking at VR. I think that would be like a super cool thing to be able to do, so you can like look around your landscapes using a VR headset, because in theory, so long as we're not porting the whole editor over to VR, which would be quite an undertaking in terms of UI, it's a relatively simple process to do. So I think you're just converting over where the camera is to be a VR camera rig, I would have thought. And then maybe having some simple movement controls and like locking the editor so that you can't do certain things. But yeah, it shouldn't be too difficult actually, so it might be something we look at doing. It should be really fun. Like, I'd really enjoy having a VR mode, and I think most people would as well. So let's remove that. There we go. So let's save this scene that I've just made. Maybe add in a few more trees actually. Let's add in a few. Put surface placement mode back on. There we go. Let's just put in stuff where it looks a bit sparse at the moment. Whoops, don't want it there. I keep on doing that for some reason. Need to be a bit more careful really. There we go. One thing I've also considered doing is putting a placement cooldown setting on there, so if you're accidentally spamming the click quite often and you kind of want to change the cooldown on how that works, it might be possible to like reduce the intervals between placements, which I think would be quite a natural feature to have. I think it kind of makes sense. But again, it's like a small quality of life thing where it's like I could add these small quality of life things forever, and then it's like how complicated does it have to get before we call it done? So I'm thinking for now, unless it's a big requested feature down the road, once the project's actually in a kind of usable state, we won't carry on adding things at this point. I might carry on adding things on the side if I find them useful, or if Josh requests them as he's designing levels. Because I'm only really the programmer, I'm not actually the designer, so all of the props that you see here he's built himself, which are nice. I can't that bit, which is oh well. But yeah, he'll request features as we go and I will build them. So that's kind of the current plan at the moment. That's why we've set up the Jira board. And hopefully development should really pick up now because we've got source control working at the moment. How many people are working on the team? Sorry, how many people are on the team making this? So we've got literally just myself. So I'm called Joshua Ellis and the other guy is called Joshua Matthews, so it's two Joshes. We both go by Josh, by the way. So it's a bit confusing, but if ever I refer to him, I either refer to his full name or I call him Matthews, just for, you know, just to reduce a bit of confusion. But yeah, I will save this scene. There we go, so this scene should be saved now, I think. I'm just going to press it again, just in case. Awesome, let me just make some quick changes to the landscape just to make sure that the saving thing has worked properly, just so that I know that this scene is actually saved. get rid of that. And let's press the load key. Yeah, let's save properly, I think. Oh, you saw the podcast. That's quite cool. I didn't know if people would really head over to the channel or not, but yeah, awesome. I'm glad people are watching. We have the podcast is a bit behind in terms of our schedule. The more recent ones are yet to be uploaded. I think we're about 4 episodes away from being caught up now. We're currently kind of doing it where we're releasing a podcast every week. Yeah, fair enough if you haven't watched the whole thing. I mean, I don't think it's for everyone. But we're currently releasing a podcast every week, and we're recording one every 2 weeks. So we're trying to catch up on the backlog that we have of stored podcasts, so that they're kind of more current and relevant for people. AliCat Pro. I'm not quite understanding what game this is in terms of type. So eventually what the plan is... So Ali, have you heard of a game called Equilinox by any chance? Let me know if you have. Is it similar kind of content to this actually in terms of exposing the development cycle? I've read your blog just now and no, not heard of that game. So this game, I'll run you through what our plans are in terms of the engine, and then I'll introduce you to kind of what we plan to do with it. So eventually, I want to make all of these props be interactable. So I want them to be configurable in terms of what behaviors they do when interacted with, what objects you need to interact with them, and what they do upon that interaction. So each object will have its own inventory. Each prop will have its own inventory, and it might do a different thing based on interacting with it. Same with the voxels actually. You'll be able to potentially interact with the voxels in game as well with like a shovel or something. And then on top of that, we hope to open up the tool set so that people can build their own maybe combat experiences with it, or just survival experiences. So the next big effort for me, on top of making these interactable and stuff, is to get AI to work. So AI is our, I think, biggest roadblock at the moment in terms of getting this to be a complete project. And what we want the AI to do is we want the AI to be configurable in terms of you can choose what things it eats, what types of things it does, what its needs are. So it might need a certain amount of food or a certain amount of water to survive over a given time. It might maybe have a life cycle, so it might breed with other things. And then from that, you'll be able to, in theory, build your own ecosystems. And then those ecosystems will be interactable based on the prop interactions which I'm adding in. So the prop interactions will extend to AI as well. So AI will be able to interact with other AI and other props, and props will not, like static props by default won't have to interact with anything static and don't carry out actions. And one smaller feature that we're adding on top of that is we want to be able to have what we're calling temporarily like portals, which are essentially just loading boxes for other worlds. So this could be like a small zone, for instance. We're going to expand this once performance features are implemented. But you'll have small zones which you could build, and this could be small forest scenes like this, or it could be small like indoor dungeons or underground caverns, whatever it is, and then you'll go through these loading zones. It will load in a new ecosystem, and then you'll be able to interact with it. So you could build, in theory, whatever you wanted. But the kind of play experience that we're going for right now is to have a survival RPG-esque experience. We might add questing on top of that eventually. I think questing would be quite a nice feature to have, but it's not something that we are considering essential to the minimum viable product of this game. So once it's released, it will be an environment configurator with a set of content that we will release alongside it. and then people will be able to make their own survival experiences from that, or their own ecosystems, and kind of mess around and see if they can make balanced ecosystems, or see if they want to like pit certain things against each other. Because I've noticed there's a lot of content on YouTube oriented around let's pit 100 of this AI against 100 of this AI and see what happens. So that's the kind of thing we want people to be able to do out of the box, rather than just have modded support. We want the editor to be a core feature of the tool set and the game. We want it to be really flexible, really open. We want people to maybe even use it as like a kind of D&D tracking tool. That might be something that we look into, but it's kind of a grey area in terms of licensing, because we can't obviously advertise it as that. We also can't really say that it's supposed to be used for that, or promote it as something that you use alongside D&D. But in theory, you could make D&D scenes using this, and the DM could have this running in the background and show the characters from your party, what they're up to, what their stats are, that kind of thing. And it does kind of fit quite nicely within the D&D framework. And this was actually kind of inspired by D&D to some extent, but we're not saying it is a D&D experience, because obviously we can't. So I hope that gives you kind of a good overview of what it is that we're up to at the moment. This scene, I think, is going to be a scene that I'm going to use moving forward, because I put a little bit more effort than normal into it, but I will also look at getting additional voxel materials in at some point with Matthews. Yeah, so survival RPG with a question map tool is quite a good summary, but the quest feature is not something that is a priority for us at launch. So don't expect questing to be in immediately. It's just, we kind of want people just experience the game at this point. I don't think we'll put in any kind of aims initially, so it won't be like, here is a set of levels, you complete this campaign. It'll be more like, here's a set of environments, complete the environments. Yeah, so it's a fairly good summary, basically. So yeah, let me hop back over to here quickly. Let me just double check this. So we've built this now. So we can actually say that this entire thing is now complete. So let's move that over. So we've done two things today. We've done variable cleanup and positional occupancy toggle. The last thing that I have to do today is update the live stream package. I was trying to do it earlier, which is why I started late. But obviously that didn't work, because otherwise I'd have an updated interface right now. But, I think I will wrap it up there, and I will do all the updated live stream stuff off the live stream, just so I'm not boring you guys with pointless stuff. But yeah, if you've enjoyed watching the content so far and you want to kind of follow along with the development, please give it a follow, because we're really trying to grow our audience at the moment. Thanks for the follow, man. One thing that we want to do in the future as well is we want to get you guys to participate on feature requests. So part of our reason for updating to the Trello, updating to not Trello, but Jira, big boy Trello, is to track features as of when they get suggested, either by us or by the community, and rapidly iterate on those. So if you guys request a feature, say like one of the toggles that I've discussed in the engine, and it's something that you guys think are quite important, we'll get you to vote on it. So we might take loads of suggestions, you guys will vote on it, whittle it down to say the top 3, might vote on it again, see what the top feature is, and then during that week I will access the board, set everything up, I'll move it to the approved and prepared stage, and then I'll work on it from there. So these types of games are masochistic. They are generally a little bit. Punish players is kind of something that we want to do in terms of the AI. So the AI aren't necessarily going to be forgiving. They're not going to be designed, let's say. So let's say you change the ecosystem in such a way where you've allowed a spider infestation to grow kind of naturally by promoting certain behaviors in the environment, you will die. Like, so you have to be kind of careful with what you do. Let's say you wipe out a certain type of predator, and then the map gets overrun by rabbits, and then all of the rabbits eat all of the food, and then all of the rabbits die, and that was the only other food source, and the rabbits were your only food source, you will also die. So we don't really want to limit the player or the experienced designer on the editor side. We want anything to be possible, and we just want to kind of put in some controls and some boundaries. So yeah, so it's kind of, I guess it could be like the Dark Souls of survival experiences. I don't know if I'd be brave enough to quite call it that, but it's like anything could happen, anything will happen, and the player has an impact on that, whether it be through the editor or in the game. So yeah, I will wrap it up there. Again, if anyone in the chat or anyone listening wants to give this a follow and is interested in the project, either check out our links or give this channel a follow here, and I'll be live streaming based on the schedule below. So it's every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I will be doing that at 12 PM GMT. So that's UK time for anyone in any other time zones. You give them a sandbox of pain, give them more knives. Yeah, don't worry. There'll be plenty of like sandbox weapons and stuff that people can mess around with. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks for joining me, and thanks guys to Thinkulum and Ali Cat for having a chat. So yeah, I'll see you next time. See you later, guys.